Hi, the stock Gamestop is making a lot of buzz in the street. The stock has surged almost 16 times in the matter of 1 month. Hi, I am Saket, and in this video we are going to see what exactly is causing the stock to surge so much. Before we go into that, first it is important for us to understand what is short selling. So let's say I expect share price of a particular stock to fall. In this example, we'll take HDFC Bank, which is currently trading at 1400. So I expect HDFC Bank shares to come to 1200 because of various research which I have conducted. So now market has a mechanism which allows you to sell the share first and buy it later. Usually in the market you can only buy something first and sell it later, but in stock market you have an option to sell something first and buy it later. So as per this mechanism, this is called as security lending and borrowing, SLB. So as per this mechanism, I can go to a person who has HDFC Bank stock. Let's say I go to person X who is owning HDFC Bank. I go and tell him, please lend me your stock for 7 days. So I take his stock. So I have borrowed his stock. I sell it in the market to X person, and after it falls to 1200, I'll purchase the stock back and I will give the stock back to Mr. X from whom I have borrowed. So this way I am making 200 rupees profit because I have sold it at 1400 and now I am buying it at 1200 and I have returned the stock back to Mr. X from whom I have purchased. So this way I can get to make profit in the stock market by short selling. So this is the basic concept of short selling. But here is a surprising thing. In Gamestop, there was 150% short positions, which means let's say totally Gamestop had around 70 million shares outstanding in the market. But there were 150% short positions. How can there be something, or how can there be short positions more than the total number of shares existing? It doesn't make sense, right? How can someone short around 100 million shares when there is only 70 million shares existing in the market? So there is an important concept which we have to understand when it comes to securities selling. So what we have to understand is totally there are around 70 million shares outstanding, and the promoters have 20 million shares, and institutions also have around 20 million shares. So which means 40 million shares are inactively traded, and there are only about 30 million shares which are very actively traded in the market. So now we will understand how exactly this was possible, how there can be 150% of short volume of the total actively traded shares. So here let's take examples of these 4 pens and we will try to understand. So this is Mr. X who has a stock of GameStop. Then comes Mr. Y who borrows from Mr. X to short sell and he sells it to Mr. Z. Right? So Mr. X lent the stock to Mr. Y who in turn sold it to Mr. Z. So now Mr. Z has a GameStop stock. So what he does is he will in turn lend it to Mr. A, right? So here you can see that there is only one stock which is getting circulated, but there are 2 short positions. So for example, Mr. X created a short position by lending the share to Mr. Y, right? And Mr. Y sold it to Mr. Z, and Mr. Z has in turn lent it to Mr. A who wants to short sell. So it's just one stock which is getting circulated, but there are 2 short positions. One short position created by Mr. A and one more short position created by Mr. Y. So this way you saw that even though in the market there was only one share, there were 2 short positions created. Same way here what has happened is there are around 150% extra short positions of the total actively traded volume. And so now it is important for us to understand why did the stock surge so much? Why were hedge funds in trouble because of this? So what happened was hedge funds, as per their report, because of COVID and as well as the slowing economy, people expected the GameStop stock to not perform really well because the business was taking a huge hit and people expected the stock not to perform well. So the hedge funds, big hedge funds in US had shorted huge amount of GameStop stock. A Reddit group called as Wall Street Bets recognized this. So they recognized that there are many short positions created and sooner or later these hedge funds will be willing to cover these short positions. So what these people in the group did was they started acquiring the shares of GameStop. These people in the group of Reddit had purchased so many stock of GameStop that in case if these hedge funds had to clear their short position, because they have borrowed the stock, right? So hence they will have to return it back to the original investor, since they have borrowed and shorted the stock, sold the stock. So since they have to purchase it back within a particular span, otherwise they will have to pay a lot of interest. So what these people did was they started purchasing lot of shares from the market, and they held all the shares, because now when these hedge funds have to buy back, they can quote at a higher price and they can sell to the hedge funds at a higher price. So this way, one single community in Reddit purchased many stocks of GameStop, and this way it created a short squeeze, because all these investors had to cover their positions, all the hedge fund people had to cover their positions, but there were no adequate shares in the market to clear the positions. That's the reason they started quoting higher and higher, because they had to clear their short position. Many hedge funds also went to the extent of being broke, and they were bailed out by other hedge funds. So once the stock started going up due to short squeeze, what people started doing is everybody wanted to participate in this. They knew hedge funds were in trouble, and everybody wanted to participate in this. So many new buyers started coming into the market, and people who had shorted had also wanted to cover their position, and that's the reason there was lot of buying coming in, but there were no adequate sellers to meet the demand, and hence the stock started surging. And the stock started going up because there were tweets by Elon Musk, and also big hedge funds all started betting for the stock to go up. And this way there was huge amount of buying coming in, but there was very limited supply of stock, because few people of the group had stocked up the stock. So this way this created a short squeeze, and this made the stock prices go up all the way from almost $10 to close to $400 within span of 2 to 3 months. And this is the reason why GameStop is in news now. This is how the entire short squeeze scenario turned out. Thank you.